are the internet infrastructure changing the morphology of the urban spaces?
When you ask about morphology and how the morphology of human spaces is going to change, I think there's really something radical in the ability to allow a building to evolve in real time, to evolve its shape and form in response to the demands of the people using it. And I think that we can begin to build spaces for conviviality and socialization. We can pull things in closer, literally, physically, the walls in closer when we require more intimate space. And, as the demands on the space change, the actual functionality. This is a dream that we've pursued throughout the history of open plan architecture, finally becoming realizable due to the ability now to embed information sensing and processing and actuation devices in the structure itself. So I have to think for a conventional architect, it's a very exciting time to finally be able to take this thing which was part of the imaginary and rest it through this process of technological transformation and make a real space that's then used and employed by people. Beyond that, there's, of course, the social morphology, and I'm less equipped to speak to that. I think we can reasonably easily predict what's going to happen on the physical level, what's going to happen in terms of the gross form and shape of things. But I think in terms of having generations coming online who are going to be native users of that sort of space, I don't know what kinds of social grouping that will give rise to. I don't know what kinds of ways they'll use that space. And I'm very hesitant to make projections about it.
And could you mention some very important examples of this changing in morphology?
The very first example of that I ever saw was the Aegis hyposurface by the architectural partnership Decoy, DECOI. Very, very tentative step into this world, but it's a 3D membrane for a building that each of the panels and elements of it actually shifts in 3 dimensions according to the actuators behind it, and those are in turn connected to a computer network. So it is the very, very first indication of where this is going. Beyond that, we have buildings like the Blur building from the 2002 Swiss Pavilion. This is Diller and Scafidio's work, which was not so much a building as a condition of water vapor that was like 86,000 computer-controlled nozzles that altered their spray patterns in response to the environmental conditions. I speak in my talks, almost always I use the example of the Carbon Tower, Peter Testa's proposed building for Los Angeles, which is made out of carbon fiber fabric that's actually cinched into tension in real time, depending on things like the gravitational load of the users moving through it. And these are, I think, signs where the discourse is going, signs where the practice is going, and I think that they are very rapidly from visualization and imagination straight through to production documents and reality in very, very short order. So I think it's a very, very interesting time to be an architect. It's a particularly interesting time to be on the informational and digital side of things.
Can architecture learn from software development and especially from the free software?
Well, as we know, open source, at least this may not be commonly known. In open source, when we speak of open source software, it means a process and practice of technological development that shares all of the work that went into creating something. So the whole notion of intellectual property is fundamentally and substantially different from proprietary shrink-wrap package software. The community is encouraged to take the intellectual endeavor that went into something to learn how something was made, instead of hoarding that information to oneself, sharing it and letting it reproduce itself in the world, taking advantage of the power of a distributed, loosely linked community to reach into the things that are being made, to understand how they were built, and to take them and then turn them to their own advantage in their own future designs. To my mind, the earliest and one of the best examples of this sort of logic was in the early days of the World Wide Web. There was, and still is, a feature called View Source. So you could go to a web page, and if you were interested in how that web page was designed and constructed, you could view the source code right there, and you could read the HTML, and you could say, oh, okay, that's how they did that. And what I think would be absolutely fascinating and long overdue is sort of a view source for buildings, a view source for the built environment. So you could, in fact, have a building speak itself and say, okay, That's how that effect was achieved.